install the software or application, test to ensure it works as expected, and test interfaces between the things on that server to make sure that they continue to work. So other maintenance includes things like network hardware replacements, such as servers, firewalls, the wireless access points, hardware refresh, which is the desktop team goes out and replaces your desktops or laptops. We call those endpoints. Every time we have a different version of a desktop or a laptop or the MCTs, the operating system that's put on those is created separately for the version of hardware you have. So the desktop team creates the image, and then when you get that hardware, they put that image on the hardware. And that's one of the reasons we like standards so much, because if we have 45 different versions of a desktop or a laptop, then we could have 45 different versions of that image to maintain. So one of the reasons we really push standards is because it lessens the load on the work that we have to do. We manage third-party maintenance agreements. We review new contracts or requests for new software. We support the business application software. Things like Munis, Eden, those larger applications, and a lot of smaller applications, Laserfish, the website content management solution we have. Lonnie will talk a little bit more about that. The desktop software support, so in addition to the 160 some business applications, we also have desktop software, which Lisa's team supports, and that includes like Adobe and your Microsoft Office. The computing infrastructure, everything.
Sure. You also provide support
and all the mobile devices, yep. The computing infrastructure, that's everything in IT sits on a network, and cybersecurity is the other part of the computing infrastructure. I just put those together because Chris is going to talk about that a little bit more. And then GIS, we provide geospatial data for all county offices and departments and the public. And Tammy's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then, of course, projects. We manage projects, large projects, small projects, and it's not just our PMO that manages projects. All the different divisions also manage projects. Okay. The second part of our how, that second tier, that second prong, is through the implementation of new technologies and services. When I talk about project management, I don't just mean the project management office. We only have 2 official project managers in IT, and there's no way they could handle all of the projects that we have. To be classified as a project, the effort must have a specific deliverable or set of deliverables. We must anticipate that it's going to take greater than 40 hours worth of work, and it must have a start and an end date. All right, and then the third prong is the strategic plan. We're planning for the future. I could spend an entire hour talking about this, so I'm not going to even address it. But if you have questions about the stuff, I'm happy to talk about that later. So we're going to move on to the desktop team. Oh, I'm sorry, the applications team. Sorry, Lonnie.
I took your slides.
Yeah, you did.
Good morning. I'm Lonnie Richards, the application supervisor. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the items that the application team is responsible for supporting and maintaining. In the application team, we are responsible for the development, enhancement, implementation, integration, and support of all of business applications. And highlighted some of the information in here. So development is building new code and implementing new applications. The enhancement piece is if we have a piece of software and a business line identifies an efficiency, we can build the software to meet the business efficiency. And then implementation is like what we're doing with ERP and the permit tracking system right now. We're getting those spun up and turned on. And then the integration is the talking between the applications and getting data elements from different offices or departments and pieces of what services or other applications. Ugh, tongue-tied. We also responsible for website maintenance, both for the Thurston County homepage, the internal intranet page, and the public-facing website. We gather business requirements from different offices and departments to provide solutions to those process changes and or processes and business policy that have been implemented. We evaluate software requests and help guide the offices and departments to pick the best solution, not just the piece of software that they want. It's more what the solution to the business problem is. And then we identify and manage cloud services, hosted applications on a variety of platforms. On this slide, I've identified just the application team's intake of customer contacts in 2022. These are contacts via the help desk that come over to the application team. I pointed out that during the 2022 year, the temporary position that we had identified to backfill and help support the operations while the ERP project was going on. This position took approximately 20% of all of our incidents and 40% of all of our service requests during that time period. So that position was able to take on more of the daily responsibility, allowing the time for the project, for the two engineers to work on the project. And then lastly, the application team, fortunately, has their hand or foot in nearly all IT projects that come into the county in one way or another. I've identified a couple of the projects that the application team has both closed and are currently in flight. You'll be happy to see the Legistar is on there and the AIS replacement, so that one's coming soon. And the permit tracking system, and we are currently working on the 2003 to 2019 migration for SharePoint, which is a fairly large, that's our internal intranet page. So
Migration to
2019. So
the new version.
yeah, so just like with the 2012 version of Server, Microsoft puts all of their services end of life at some point, and the SharePoint environment that we have goes end of life in October 12th, I think. So, and next up is Lisa and the desktop team.
Now it's Lisa.
Yeah, sorry.
My name is Lisa Corman. I'm the desktop team supervisor. And when you think about the desktop team, you think about the service desk where you call us and then we respond to your requests, or the technicians are dispatched to come help you. Or you go to our service portal and you fill out forms for the specific type of service that you would like. One thing you may not know is behind the scenes, it is my team that is developing those forms. And as the forms are filled out, it allows us to use a workflow to route the ticket to the correct team. And that makes it much more efficient to respond to your requests. Another thing we do behind the scenes is for self-service is a new product called PaperCut. And this allows the end users to install their own printers. And that saves a lot of time, and it again adds efficiency, and the customers don't have to wait for us to come install the printers for them. Another self-service option we now have is the Software Center. That we have many applications published there, and they're published by group. So you don't see all of the applications, you only see the applications pertinent to your office or department when you go into that Software Center. Another thing we do is we partner with our offices and departments with the technical liaisons. Now, each department and office has one or more technical liaisons. They attend quarterly meetings, and that way we can communicate and collaborate with them on upcoming technology and processes and procedures. And then also we host a SharePoint site where we post this information for the liaisons. For example, we have a printer inventory that's very useful when it comes time for moves, which we just did a huge move here to the atrium, and then the upcoming move at the main campus.
So Lisa, in the commissioner's office, who's our tech liaison?
It is Jamie Caldwell and Brandy. So another thing the desktop team does that you may not realize is the audio visuals technology. And this has really skyrocketed since the pandemic. We are responsible for the design because each room has different needs, but depending on size and the purpose. We handle the purchasing, making sure we purchase on contract. We handle grant-funded projects, which often have specific deadlines and criteria that we have to meet so that we obtain the funds that we need to reimburse us for these projects. Training, of course, and then the ongoing support. Many of those rooms require integration with Teams and Zoom. As today, we are broadcasting through Zoom and recording through Zoom, so there's an integration there with Zoom. We now have 38 conference rooms, 18 courtrooms, and 3 jail booths that have the more complex conferencing systems. And coming up, we have 9 interview booths going into the jail. And then in the main campus remodel, unknown number, but I expect we'll have quite a few new conference rooms going in when we do the main campus remodel. Another thing that we do is manage the department moves. We manage the move of all the computers and printers here to the atrium, and we'll repeat that process at the main campus as we do the remodels.
By the way, I have to tell you, that was a smooth process, and kudos to you and your team because it was flawless. So thank you.
Meryl. Thank you. And then for security, we also, the desktop team, manage a product called Patch My PC, and that patches third-party applications to keep us secure. Things like the Zoom client, Duo, which is our multi-factor authentication, and Google Chrome, just to name a couple. Finally, the desktop team is responsible for the technology purchasing. We purchase various types of hardware, computers, printers, scanners, the mobile computer terminals for the sheriff's deputies, the live scan fingerprint systems for the sheriff's office and the jail. We purchase the software, Adobe, Visio Project, to name a few. And we always do this with an eye towards the purchasing policy, which is why it's so important that customers come to us to do these purchases. Centralizing this ensures that we're following policies, purchasing on contract when necessary, and then we also provide consultation for users' needs if it's not a standard already published. We do post our hardware and software standards on the Technical Liaison SharePoint site for reference, and that includes for computers customized models for different client needs. For example, Tammy's team in GeoData has a higher end computer that's necessary for what they do. The assessor appraisers, they go out in the field, they need a more rugged laptop to go in the field, as does the detectives. And so all of these are outlined on the site so people can go and look and see what's available to meet their specific need. We also manage the hardware and desktop software inventory for IT rates. For those of you that don't know, many of the rates are based on the computer count. And the computer count isn't just people's computers, but there's also computers in the courtrooms, computers in these conference rooms that aren't used by individuals. So that's why the number of computers we support is far greater than the number of employees. We have a 5-year replacement cycle. We handle the surplus to make sure it's done green, so it goes to a recycler. And finally, the PC replacement program, we call it ITRP, Information Technology Replacement Program, for the general fund agencies. This was established in 2008 because we found that the general fund agencies were unable to replace their computers in a timely manner. And those end users were having to use older computers and not able to do their job, as well as other departments that maybe had other funding sources. So this is a great program, and it ensures everyone has what they need to do their job. And now I'll turn it over to Chris Keller on the network team.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the time. I'm Chris Keller, Network Team Supervisor and a lifelong Mariners fan. Go Ams, let's take the division, let's go. So I'd like to say that my group is more of an infrastructure team because we do a lot more than just take care of the network. We do daily administration and securing of the county's core infrastructure and operational technologies. These foundational services carry a mission-critical requirement of high availability and response. So we have servers. We take care of more than 200 of these servers that host the business-critical applications. We have switches, firewalls, and access points, of which we have about 300 countywide that we take care of. This equipment needs to be configured and worked on daily to ensure a good end-user experience, maximum uptime, and just availability of all the county systems. With the core network, the core equipment, if that's not there, nothing else happens in IT. We have desks and cell phones, as Romero pointed out. We have more than 2,500 desk and cell phone lines. Almost 300 of those are our first responders. So issues and requests for services, maintaining the health of this core infrastructure for the entire county and responding to operational keep the lights on requests is frequently enough to keep my staff of 6 very busy. That's 4 network server technicians and only 2 telecommunication technicians, the phone guys. A single complex issue often ties up a technician for hours at a time. We constantly have to take inventory of our priorities and shift them, much like the Seahawks calling audibles at the line during a long, successful drive. Go Hawks.
So Seahawks fan as well.
Everything Seattle. Other examples of our daily operational work would be like the Thurston County Sheriff's Office connectivity and body cameras projects, Active Directory user account management, Microsoft O365 account management, data storage and recovery, voicemail, call routing, mobile device apps, public works technology support. So that was a little tiny bit of the daily operational work that keeps us super busy. The next thing that we would like to get to more would be project work covering improvements, upgrades, and optimizations of the county's core infrastructure and operation technologies. We don't get to spend as much time as we would like on these, as the daily operational work often gets prioritized for our small team. Here's a small sampling of our project work that we're currently working on right now. So we're trying to build proactive monitoring systems for the network. This is a really big deal to try to get to the more proactive than reactive state of IT, and that core equipment that has to be up for anything else to work. If we can get those alarms and see those logs and do the really detailed work of diving into those things before they affect the end user, we can get to certain items that will curtail an outage. So that's a really big deal. That's something that we're shooting for, is the monitoring systems. So offsite data storage, it's another one that we're looking at a safe and reliable way to have our servers and file shares backed up into a completely different offsite location from the county courthouse. This will fulfill a cybersecurity insurance requirement and set us up better with disaster recovery in mind. Hardware upgrades. We need to keep the age of our core infrastructure equipment within suggested parameters. Older gear has a higher rate of failure. Security camera upgrades and installs. New builds take a lot of time with those security cameras. New builds take a lot of time to get right. So we spend a lot of time on those. We have the upcoming Microsoft Intune implementation. So that's basically all the county endpoints, laptops, cell phones, anything with an IP address in one pane of glass that we can push updates to and manage within Microsoft Intune. So that's a big one. It's coming soon. We have submitted a policy level request for a new FTE for the network team. This will help us, number one, respond to trouble tickets quicker with faster resolution, which equals smiles on customers' faces, spread the work more evenly across my team. It'll help with coverage, and it'll allow us to get to more of these improvement projects that I talked about. Under me, I also have the 2-person security team. For the last year, our security team was operating with 1 person. We had a heck of a time filling that second position. Engineer level security, professional level security, expert level security techs are hard to find these days. Everybody's entry level on the security, it seems. But we just filled that position this month with Jeff. You guys will all meet him, I'm sure. But so we have 2 people now. We're fully staffed at the security team, which is really good. The security team takes care of policy management, risk assessments, security incident response, of course, Contract and data sharing review, vulnerability management, and that's how we get to the stuff that we know needs to be fixed, the vulnerabilities. The security team supports IT teams with advanced troubleshooting. So those guys are the packet capture folks that sit and they know how to read that and they speak that language, and they are vital to what we do here. And then, of course, security awareness through training, flyers, and our email phishing tool called KnowBefore. So just a few updates from the security team. They wanted me to let you know, the Duo multi-factor authentication. So when we log in, you get prompted and it's multi-factor, so it goes to a mobile device or that you have registered. So we have about 1,000 county users registered in that, and we're doing the final push to get the last 300 or so, and that should be happening soon. So that's very good. We've also consolidated that configuration to decrease support issues and have the same experience across the board for all county users. And then lastly here, we have the Department of Homeland Security. The security assessment team came in from DHS. They did an assessment, 2-week assessment conducted in early August. We've got a lot of findings that we need to get to work on. Our final report is in, and we'll be working towards remediation really soon. Thanks for the time this morning, and now over to Tammy and the GeoData team.
Good morning,
Yes, wait.
everyone.
You say a lot of findings. That was on the second round when they came back, right? Because the first time they came was
Yes.
some issues.
That's correct.
Yes, this is the second time different team came in from Department of Homeland Security and did the same type of work.
I'm not necessarily interested in divulging what the opportunities or the findings they found in public, but it will be great to have an outline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good morning, I'm Tammy Faulkner and I am the supervisor of the GeoData team. And I'm going to talk about a very specific aspect of GeoData support that you may not be as familiar with. I will mention my team does do projects, IT projects, similar to a smaller scale view of what Lonnie described. But we also do a lot of other things related to geospatial information. And so if you look at, I'm sure this map is something you're familiar with because it is the new Commissioner District map. And it's something that you're probably pretty familiar with that we do, a product we provide. You may be familiar with the analysis product, which is the redistricting process, for instance, involved a lot of analysis looking at population data and various other types of data to help draw those lines. Or we have our online map viewers, such as our public website. And if you've seen those, that may be what you think of when you think of GeoData. But I'm going to expose a whole different part that you may not have been as aware of. So when you look at this map, what you actually may not be aware of is that there's 11 different data sets or data layers, I use those interchangeably, that go into just this one map. And all of these data sets have to be individually maintained and updated, and they all have their own rules for maintenance and updating. So just for this one map that you're familiar with, we have the commissioner districts, which can only change when a prescribed process that involves public meetings and Board of County Commissioner approvals. We cannot change those without that process. We're actually legally mandated not to. Cities go through a Board of Equalization and OFM process for annexations, so we can't change city boundaries if that process hasn't occurred. Some of the more simple ones, for instance, the railroads, they hardly ever change. Nobody's paying that much attention. We can make small corrections if we need to on those without having to go through any sort of a process. So every data set has a different set of rules. And it becomes more complex, you realize, when you understand that we actually have over 600 of these that we're responsible for the county. And it's an ever-growing set of information that we're responsible for. These are used by offices, departments, and the public and partner organizations across the county in one capacity or another. Each one of these has different rules and drivers and even laws that impact when and how they can be updated. For instance, zoning requires comprehensive plan amendments. Streams are tied to municipal code. Redistricting is tied to RCW, Census, and Office of Financial Management population data. Some of the sets are static. The city's 1948 data, which I'm sure is pretty esoteric, but it's used for conservation districts, and it can't change. It never changes. Others that we maintain are updated weekly. The asset management data in the ViewWorks system for like signs and stormwater locations, we maintain that all the time. The inventory is constantly growing as new spatially based analysis and policy comes on board. There's some projects in CPED, the tree canopy analysis, for instance, that's going to give us more data. And we find this data very useful, by the way. We're not arguing, we're not saying, no, don't give it to us. We want it because it's gonna be really useful. The voluntary stewardship program is gonna produce more data layers that we're responsible for. So it's an ever-growing volume of data. We also get a lot of data via data sharing agreements. We have data sharing agreements with all of the tribes and the cities within our boundary, and the state with a lot of different, that represents a lot of different agencies, and we get over 250 layers through data sharing, and we also give out about 86 data sets. So all of that is done in addition to what I just described to you. And the last piece I want to focus on a little bit is the imagery data. And that is not included in the numbers I just gave you. So in addition to our normal data, we house and serve 65 what we call imagery or raster data layers. The first set is aerial photography. It goes all the way back to 1996. So if you look at the slide, upper left corner, that is the 1996 imagery done in black and white. It's quite old. We've updated that every 3 to 4 years ever since, the most recently 2022, which is in the upper right side. And the true color imagery, which is what you see the most of up there, is used for identifying assets, assessment purposes, permitting, and code enforcement. The public also likes to see it on our website when they're looking at their property. The color infrared, which is the red, the two red ones that you can see, that is actually useful in detecting vegetation, vegetation health, impervious surfaces, and water. So it's very good for analysis purposes. The bottom row is LiDAR data, which stands for light detection and ranging. It's a method where they fly a plane over and they use a laser, pulsed laser, to measure distance. And so they're looking at the tree canopy. They can see the tree canopy. They can see the landscape. They can detect landslide hazards, such as to identify potential risks so they could avoid issues like what happened with Oso. The people in our CPED department who do the Water Resources Group, who do the landslide assessment with permitting, this is critical for them. In 2011, we got countywide coverage of an older style called QL2. In 2017 and 2021, we finished the rest of the county in the newest quality LiDAR, which is QL1, and that's what you see on the far right. The best and newest stuff on the left is the older stuff from 2011. It's used for a ton of applications. We manage the contracts for these, for the acquisition of these. We look for grant partnerships. Our last LiDAR delivery was grant funded. And we look for ways to keep this data up to date. Our inventory of imagery is constantly increasing as we acquire new data. We use the data, and it's used in many different departments for detecting changes over time, for property appraisal, point in time like the high groundwater or flood events. And improvements of technology mean that better data is available, sometimes at a lower cost. So we keep trying to get new stuff. So that's all I wanted to share with you. It's a portion of what we do, but I think it's maybe not obvious, so I wanted you to know about it. I'm going to turn it over to Sherry now.
All right, so what I really want to reiterate is that we are busier than we seem. I often hear that there's magic going on, and I don't want to, ruin the surprise, but it's not magic. There's a lot of people making this stuff work. Maintaining what we have while supporting new technologies and focusing on what we want it to be it's a lot of effort. One of the things we really are working on right now is enhancing our relationships with offices and departments. We are doing what we can to earn their trust, to better understand our customers and their priorities, and then we can be more proactive in helping them find solutions. One of the things we really need to do is overhaul our current policies, processes, and procedures. A lot of them are old and they need some attention. A lot of them still say central services, so. And then, of course, better communication and engagement. Our opportunities right now, and one of the reasons that we are presenting this information to you is to explain a little bit what we do and why we're asking for more resources. So in the next budget request, we're asking for one more person on the network team, one FTE. We've had a large increase in the number of buildings that we occupy, increase in the complexity of the equipment and the technology we support, and increase in the number of staff, and we have not increased the network team, at least in the past 5 years that I've been here, probably much longer. And then we have that temporary position on the app team, and we're asking to renew that end date and make that position permanent. The more complex applications that we're supporting, the more work that it takes for Lonnie's team to do that. One thing that we want to do also is to continue to focus on building up our PMO. The IT department is 5 years old, I think 4.5 years old. I think the PMO is probably even younger than that. It's
You spell PMO, just for.
sorry, Project Management Office, I'm sorry, yeah. It's a very young department. It doesn't have dedicated leadership. It hasn't had very much leadership the last 9 months, to be honest, because that position's been vacant. But one thing that we really want to do is to focus on identifying repeatable processes that can be used in any situation. And we want to set up a way to track all the projects that we have in flight, not just in the PMO, but also in all of IT. So I think that's an area that can really improve the understanding of what IT is working on. So we only had an hour to present all this information. We could have gone on for much longer, but I didn't want you all to fall asleep on us. But we have an opportunity now for questions, so.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I don't know if I have questions as much as I've got accolades, I guess. And I have to say, if you're not magicians, you're miracle workers. And that's,
It's these people right here that do it.
that's about all I can say about that, because I came up from an era when we had manual typewriters and weapons that had been designed at the turn of the century, and I don't mean 2000. So I'm in awe of you folks. I just, the fact that I'm not a tech person maybe allows me to have a better appreciation for what you folks do on a regular basis. I know everybody appreciates what you do, but I really appreciate what you do, because that era I came from, I mean, I just about went broke buying flowers and chocolate for the secretariat because I'd go in with a mistake on a detective report I was working on, and I mean, it was a major undertaking because it might have been needed to be adjusted 3-4 different places or something like that. And you'd just rather take a beating than go in there and explain that you needed that redone because you couldn't have a mistake because it was going to trial, you know. So I don't know. I mean, and you talk about, you know, the security and stuff, you know. When I heard about phishing, I had no idea what, you know, I had a different point of view, obviously. So I just think you folks just do super work with the tools that you've got.
Thank
You know,
you.
I mean, it's quite an advancement from the electric typewriter, I can tell you. Or a word processing machine or something. So I really do. I just can't say enough about how much I appreciate everything you guys do. And the resources that you work with, you know, and so, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
am in awe of you folks.
I had a question on GeoData. So we had that, I would say painful effort to try to get the contract worked out on the aerial stuff, and haven't heard about that in a while. And as I said before, at the board level, no news is usually good news, but I'm just wondering how that's worked out, and is it accomplishing what we thought we were investing in?
I think it's turned out to be a pretty good compromise. The assessor's office had real specific needs for the oblique imagery, and our aerial contract became part of what they were doing. And so it's been a bit of an adjustment. We're getting them every 4 years as opposed to every 3 years. But we are able to define exactly what we need and to get what we need. And so I feel like that last go round was successful, we'll have to, we've got one more flight that's more for the assessor's office and some of the people that are using the obliques than it is for us. Then the contract's over and we have to renegotiate. And so we'll kind of revisit how well it's working at that point in time. But I think we've had the results, the 2022 aerials seem to be the results that we were looking for. And so I think it was generally successful.
Great, thank you. That's the only question I had. Good job, guys.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you so much for the status brief. I don't have really any questions. You know, I just echo what Commissioner Edwards said. Different viewpoint, different
I'm sure you have a better
timeline on
understanding.
things. But no, I'm just you know, very thankful. I know that I was like those calls for password reset. You know, I've done that a couple of times, and I'm always happy when Robin has new problems where when I get them, everyone's like, oh, Robin had that problem. So no, but just really thankful for all the work you do. I mean, just from the project management for softwares to having to work with different offices and departments and help with something as simple as a password reset to something more complicated, you know, from making sure that we all have that phone service and that our phones are working. You know, it's really important work, and really it goes at the core of what we all do. And you know, it's really important work. Because it makes all of our jobs way easier, and so thank you really for all the work that you're doing. I'm really looking forward to those new opportunities, as you mentioned, Sherry, the updating of our processes and our policies. I think that's going to be very important, especially as we move forward and as resources become tighter. And I know that there's, as soon as one software project is done, there's another one waiting right there in the back burner. So, you know, I know resources can be tight, so that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you. Go ahead.
I wanted to tell Chris, I'm an Angels fan, but it's been so long since we've tasted the playoffs, I'm starting to get Mariners fever. This team's looking really good.
Especially with the recent fire sale.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, great presentation, and really, it paints the picture of the complexity, the responsibility, that you have, and all of you. And being the receiver of your help and your support is nothing but appreciation for what you do. I mean, the scope of work that you have in front of you is just amazing. And keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate everything that you do.
Thanks.
Super good, super good.
Robin and then Rob.
So we're at a point in time where we can't function without computers. And that, having a desktop computer, I remember when they put the very first one on my desk when I was working many years ago. And it's just evolved to where you take this and this everywhere we go. And when these go down, work stops. So everything you do, all of the sections in the IT department are essential to every service that we provide throughout the county. So I really appreciate all the work that all of you do, and super proud of the work of this department.
I remember the days when, early on, probably back in the late 80s, early 90s, when even I plugged and played, you know, different peripheral devices into the PCs, which you wouldn't want me to do at all. My question, though, is back on early slide, on the how slide. You were talking about new technology and services, strategic planning, et cetera. And the phrase I wrote down was not being left behind. But at the same time, I was just curious about when all the flood of new tech or new software, et cetera, how do you go through kind of determining your ROI or, you know, return on that investment to know that there's a difference between being left behind and being able to communicate with everybody or collaborate versus the newest fad? So how can you weed fads out from the structural stuff we need?
I think we find a lot of that these days, obviously. People used it at a different place. They went to a trade show, they saw something cool, they saw it on the commercials during the football games. You know, use this because it's gonna make your life better. And we have to be really, really aware of the functionality and what problem we're trying to solve. So our first question is often, what problem are you trying to solve? And we want to know what it is so that we can dig through that marketing and try to help you understand whether or not that solution is actually going to meet your business need. So that is for the emerging technologies, and that's something that, you know, Lonnie's team does a lot of work on, and then the security reviews, we like to get to make sure that that is secure. And then we also want to know if we already have something that meets that business need here. But when the other part, the strategic planning, is we need to be poised and ready to take on newer stuff. And that's the part that doesn't get a ton of attention right now because we're in such a reactionary mode. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to focus on, is being proactive and identifying the next AI. I mean, I've talked about this for a while. AI is coming, people are using it, they want to use it, we're not ready for it. And perhaps if we had been a little bit, if we'd had a little bit more resources at the time, that we could have planned for it. And we would be ready to tell you, you know, this is what we think about AI. There's a lot of free stuff out there. We don't want you using that because it's probably not secure. But yeah, that is a big thing. We want to make sure the solution solves your problem, and we want to make sure that it fits in our organization, in our infrastructure, and that we can support it. If you bring something way off the wall here, we can't support it. The person who purchased it and maybe knows everything about it, they leave, and then it ends up in our laps, to be honest. And that's happened quite a few times, unfortunately. A business solves a problem using the solution that they know or understand, and then the owner of that solution leaves, and then they're looking at us saying, can't you make this work? We have no idea what it is, so.
So in many ways, you're the doctor's office. Kind of
In many
helping
ways.
agents weed out all those pharmaceutical ads to really kind of boil down to what you actually need for a treatment to do the service you're trying to provide.
Right, yes.
We have a cross-department committee, right? That basically goes through that analysis that you were describing, and you laid it out for us a couple of weeks ago, and I was very impressed by that. We had a group that didn't actually do that, and that
Well,
caused
that's
an
the
issue,
problem,
but
is they don't
when that
always.
process is followed, I was very happy to
Yeah.
hear that those questions were being answered, because they seemed like the right questions to get to Rob's point.
Right.
How to invest in the right things and not the shiny object or that we don't really need, or it's not gonna be useful in 2 years.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. Okay. 9:55, and you did it with 5 minutes to spare. Great job. Okay.
Thank
We
you.
are adjourned.